Hello everyone, and welcome back to the Spanish Sling, a podcast where we try to bridge the gap between the Spanish and Singaporean companies and encourage economic relations between them. Have you ever wondered about the interesting world of an interpreter and translator? Today, Ana Pleite in the Spanish Sling will give us a glimpse of her sector. To give you a brief summary of her long professional career, Ana is an expert in simultaneous interpretation and has been working for 10 years in Geneva and now is based in Singapore since 2017. Is that right, Hannah?
It is right.
Welcome to the Spanish Sling.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
No, it's a pleasure. So, firstly, can you give us a brief summary of the differences between being an interpreter and being a translator?
That's an easy one. So, basically, a translator is someone who takes a written text in one language and puts it on paper, written text, on a different language. An interpreter works also with words, also with ideas, but not on paper, only oral. So you will say something and an interpreter will say that same thing, that same message in a different language. So translator is written, interpreter is oral. And it's two different skill sets entirely, two different professions entirely.
Yes, easy to differentiate. And then for all of our audience who's not maybe familiar with the sector, can you explain it a little bit and tell us what activities are you most invested in and what services do you provide as an interpreter?
So interpreters can provide different kinds of services, basically. It depends mostly on the customer, on what kind of business or entity it is. I had the pleasure to work in Geneva for 11 years, mostly for the international institutions, for the UN family institutions. And when you work in that environment, you're basically working in a conference setting where you are working simultaneously in your booth and you follow all kinds of different meetings. So you are a maker of international policy and international relations from the back of the room. When you work, for instance, with businesses in the private market, you might be called to be in business meetings where you're sitting there at the table with the companies and you will be doing mostly consecutive interpretation. Consecutive interpretation means someone is speaking, the interpreter is taking notes, and then when the speaker is done, after 5 to 10 minutes, then the interpreter will repeat the message in another language. But of course, different settings require different services as well, and we all more or less specialize in one setting, another setting, then sometimes life just brings you to different settings at the same time and you just have to adapt.
Yes, I guess it's so enriching to be able to do different activities. And reminiscing about a world without COVID. So before COVID, which kind of activities did you do most here in Asia?
So before COVID, it was mostly, I have to say that since I moved to Asia, it's been very interesting for me professionally because I've gone from just being mainly institutional to have all kinds of different clients. Here you do things, I've done things that are fun, things like the Olympic Games, or I've worked for the IMF, but then I also get to work with Spanish businesses in Singapore who come here and want to have deals with Singaporean companies, or vice versa, Singaporean companies who want to have businesses in Spain and then need help to build that bridge, right? Because as an interpreter, you're basically a cultural bridge as well, and because we have that wealth of experience, we're also good advisors. Some of us, I don't want to say all of us, but some of us also offer consulting services when you actually need to bridge that gap, that cultural gap between the way business is done here and Spain and in Asia and Europe and for so many companies, especially small and medium enterprises, they do that once. Once or twice, especially at the beginning. Whereas we've done it, I've done it 100 times. So there's also that added experience, and on top of it, we're doing in different fields. It's not that you're a specialist in one industry. It's not that you know about fisheries and that's all you know. No, you know that in fisheries maybe it's done this way, but when you do intellectual property or software, then they have different practices that could be used here. So there are not that many people who can actually offer that kind of consultancy at an affordable price. I mean, I'm sure McKinsey can do that too, but they won't charge the same. I don't know if I've answered your question.
No, you have. I'm not very much. And finally, for all the Spanish newly qualified translators or interpreters, what advice would you give them if they want to pursue an international career? And that's a typical one.
I'm going to be sure. I'm going to try to be sure. You need to get properly trained. You need to do an EMCI training, an EMCA master's degree. That's the European Masters in Conference Interpreting. You can Google it, you find everything. Or there's another school in California, in Monterey, that also offers that kind of training. And then once you are qualified from one of those schools, because there are many schools, but those are the ones you want, your teacher will probably guide you, and you will probably have a good idea of what you should be doing. But then my second greatest advice is that you need to network, and that's where I find associations are more useful. And if you want to be a conference interpreter, I would strongly recommend that you go to your browser, you Google AIC, which is the International Association of Conference Interpreters. There's only one in the world, so there's no, I'm not pushing for one instead of another one. There's only one. And then there's a program there for young interpreters. You can find mentors there, and you have tons of experienced colleagues there who can actually guide you through navigate the first years of the profession, which are extremely hard. I don't want to lie. It's difficult. It's tough. We were talking about it before. There's only 5,000 interpreters in the world, maybe a little bit more. We don't know much about Asia and Africa, but there's not many of us. So it's really tough. You have to network and get good mentors and just really believe that's what you want to do. It's a vocational profession for sure.
Yes. Well, so be sure to follow Ana's advice.
You can call me too.
Yes, sure. And thank you so much for giving us a glimpse of your world and understanding a bit more about the world of an interpreter and translator. Thank you very much.
Thank
Ana.
you, Claire.
Thank you.
Thank you.